Welcome to the Bergstrom Air Conditioning Seminars. At Bergstrom, we're here to help you. We'll provide you with practical knowledge that leads to the best performance for your air conditioning systems. In this first of 4 seminars, we'll take you through all the major components of air conditioning systems and show you how they function and transfer heat. To start with, there are 2 types of air conditioning systems, the expansion valve system and the orifice tube system. Both systems have main components that are important to know and understand. We'll start with the expansion valve system. Let's take a look at the components. One major component is the compressor. The compressor receives cool refrigerant vapor from the evaporator and compresses it to hot, high-pressure gas that is discharged to the condenser. The next component to look at is the condenser. The condenser is like a radiator for refrigerant. The hot refrigerant vapor travels through the condenser tubes and heat is transferred from the refrigerant to the fins. Then, as the cool outside air flows past the fins, heat is transferred to the air. The vapor is cooled and condensed and turns into liquid. Another important component is the receiver dryer. The receiver dryer receives liquid refrigerant from the condenser and contains a filter. The refrigerant passes through the filter, and the filter removes contaminants. In addition, the filter absorbs moisture from the refrigerant, thereby drying the refrigerant. The receiver dryer also acts as a reservoir for liquid refrigerant storage. Next, we'll take a look at the expansion valve. The expansion valve meters the amount of the refrigerant entering the evaporator. As the refrigerant enters the evaporator, it changes from high pressure to low pressure liquid, then vaporizes as it absorbs heat. The actual temperature of the refrigerant in the evaporator is cold, with the heat hidden in the refrigerant as latent heat. The next component is the evaporator. As the refrigerant passes through the expansion valve, it cools. As it passes through the evaporator, heat from the cab air is transferred through the fins to the refrigerant. As the refrigerant heats up, it boils and evaporates, changing from a liquid to a vapor. This evaporation process traps the heat in the refrigerant. Now, let's take a look at the components of the orifice tube air conditioning system. Like the expansion valve system, it has a compressor, condenser, and evaporator. But there are also 2 different components. An orifice tube that replaces the TXV block valve in an expansion valve system, and an accumulator that replaces the receiver dryer in an expansion valve system. Let's start with the orifice tube component. Like an expansion valve, the orifice tube is used to control the amount of refrigerant entering the evaporator. It changes high temperature, high pressure liquid to low temperature, low pressure liquid through a tube that's similarly small to that of an expansion valve. The refrigerant passes through the evaporator and leaves as a liquid. The other component is the accumulator. Accumulators are only used on systems that contain orifice tubes. In orifice tube systems, liquid refrigerant is allowed to leave the evaporator. The accumulator is the component required to receive and store the liquid refrigerant, which prevents liquid from entering the compressor, and thus allows only vapor to enter the compressor. You've now seen the key components in the 2 different types of systems. To learn more, be sure to watch our additional seminars. Air conditioning system types and operations, air conditioning system maintenance and service, and air conditioning system troubleshooting. They're very quick and very helpful. Thank you for your time. At Bergstrom, we're here for you.